December 17, 1944. The Ardennes Forest lay frozen in a suffocating silence, broken only by the distant rumble of engines and the low murmur of men preparing for battle. Beneath that stillness, Oberfähnrich Hans Müller crouched in his foxhole, his hands trembling not from the cold, but from the echo of what he had just witnessed. The fog rolled thick through the forest that morning, muffling the sounds of war, and yet Müller could feel the world convulsing around him. When the American artillery began, it did not come as a warning. It came as annihilation. There was no build-up, no gradual thunder, only the instantaneous transformation of peace into chaos. One heartbeat of quiet, and then the sky itself opened fire. Müller's battalion, part of the Sixth SS Panzer Army, had marched confidently into what they believed was a swift and decisive victory. They had achieved complete surprise against thinly stretched American lines, slicing through the snow-covered Ardennes like wolves through prey. But what none of them could have imagined was the invisible web of precision that awaited them, a network of coordination, mathematics and machine efficiency that turned the American artillery into a force of nature. It wasn't just the volume of shells. It was the uncanny speed and accuracy, the cold precision of a system designed to erase entire battalions before they could react. What Müller saw that morning was the beginning of the end, not only for his unit, but for Hitler's final gamble in the West. The seeds of that destruction had been planted long before. For years, German soldiers had learned to endure Soviet bombardments on the Eastern Front. They knew how to read the rhythm of the Russians, the telltale ranging shots, the predictable tempo of fire, the seconds of grace between impacts that allowed survival. But the Americans fought differently. Their artillery was like lightning. It struck without warning with the precision of a god's hammer. A German veteran of Tunisia, Corporal Otto Schmidt, once recalled watching his entire company vanish under a single American barrage that lasted less than a minute. What began as a routine morning turned into an inferno of simultaneous detonations. No warning, no chance to run. In 30 seconds, over 100 men were reduced to a handful of stunned survivors. The Americans didn't just shoot, they orchestrated destruction. At the heart of that orchestration lay the American fire direction system, a marvel of organization and computation that no other army on Earth could match. While German batteries calculated their firing solutions one gun at a time, the Americans centralized the process in fire direction centers, nerve hubs that could coordinate dozens of batteries across miles of terrain with mathematical perfection. These calculations weren't guesswork. They were the product of thousands of hours of computation done back in the United States by rooms full of mathematicians, engineers and factory workers, many of them women, calculating every variable: wind, humidity, elevation, even the temperature of the propellant. The Americans didn't calculate under fire. They had already done the math before the battle even began. But what truly broke the German will was not just the mathematics, it was time on target. This single innovation changed the face of warfare forever. By staggering the firing times of distant batteries, the Americans ensured that every shell arrived simultaneously within a 3-second window. There were no ranging shots, no gradual escalation. Silence, then oblivion. Soldiers who had survived years of shell fire found themselves paralyzed by the shock of instant devastation. One German officer described it best: "You hear nothing. Then the world ends." It was as if the heavens had been weaponized, raining fire in perfect synchronicity. The Americans had built not only an army of men, but a machine of war. Their radios were clearer, their observers more numerous, their logistics unmatched. Every American infantry battalion had multiple radio-equipped spotters capable of calling in fire within minutes. While the Germans struggled with outdated AM sets, often shared between units and plagued by static, American forward observers weren't just soldiers. They were tacticians, moving alongside infantry and capable of summoning death from miles away with a single transmission. A lieutenant trapped in a farmhouse could command more destructive firepower than a German regimental commander, and they did it with frightening efficiency. Behind this precision stood the industrial might of America, the endless factories, the roaring furnaces, the endless assembly lines producing guns faster than the Germans could destroy them. The M2A1 105mm howitzer became the workhorse of the American army, light enough to move quickly, powerful enough to devastate any target. Fully motorized, these batteries could fire, move, and fire again within half an hour, leaving the lumbering German horse-drawn artillery hopelessly behind. By 1945, the Germans were still fighting with the logistics of the 19th century against an enemy armed with the technology of the 20th. Then came the final terror, the VT fuse. When Eisenhower authorized its use during the Battle of the Bulge, it changed everything. Each shell carried a miniature radar that detonated when near its target, exploding in the air above soldiers who had learned to survive by lying flat. Now even that instinct betrayed them. Fragments fell from above like iron rain, slicing through men who thought they were safe. There was no escape, no defense, no countermeasure. Entire units froze in terror, unwilling to move in the open. Even when ordered to attack, soldiers refused, knowing that a single spotting plane overhead meant certain death. The German army, once defined by its discipline, found itself paralyzed by fear of a weapon it could neither see nor fight. The collapse was inevitable. The fog that had shielded the German advance no longer mattered. The weather might have grounded the Allied Air Force, but it could not silence the American guns. The forests of the Ardennes became killing fields, littered with the shattered remnants of an army that no longer believed in victory. Artillery had broken their will long before tanks and infantry sealed their fate. For every German shell fired, the Americans fired 100. For every gun destroyed, 2 more appeared. Their supply seemed endless, their precision merciless. German commanders pleaded for more ammunition, but their requests vanished into the chaos of a collapsing logistics system. American shells kept falling, and with each detonation, the myth of German invincibility crumbled a little more. By the war's end, even those who had fought against the Americans came to understand what had truly defeated them. It wasn't just superior tactics or bravery, it was the power of a system built on discipline, industry, and science. The Americans had turned artillery into a machine that could think faster, react quicker, and destroy more efficiently than any human army could. It wasn't a weapon of chance. It was a weapon of design. A perfect union of brains and brawn, calculation and courage. For men like Hans Müller, who had survived the inferno of the Ardennes only to be captured later, the revelation was as humbling as it was terrifying. He realized that courage alone could not overcome a nation that had mastered the art of war as an industrial science. Years later, many of those who had faced that fire would speak not with hatred, but with awe. They admitted that American artillery had redefined the very nature of combat. It wasn't the brutality of the weapon they remembered most. It was its precision, its inescapable certainty. They had seen war stripped of chaos and made into something methodical, efficient, and terrifyingly effective. The artillery that shattered the German offensive in the winter of 1944 was more than just a weapon. It was a symbol of a new world order, one where science and production ruled the battlefield. And so, when historians look back on that brutal winter, they see more than just frozen forests and broken tanks. They see the moment when warfare itself evolved. The thunder that rolled through the Ardennes that December didn't just mark the fall of Hitler's last hope, it marked the rise of a new kind of war. One fought not by the strongest or bravest, but by those who could think, build, and coordinate on an industrial scale. In that frozen forest under a gray Belgian sky, the future of warfare was written in fire and steel. If you found this story as haunting and powerful as the men who lived it, tell us your thoughts below. Do you think industrial power decided the outcome of World War II more than bravery or leadership? Share your take in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more deep, dramatic stories from history that changed the world forever.